James had always believed that success was meant to be swift and abundant. For years, he toiled on the land, watched crops grow, and waited for his hard work to pay off. But the results were painfully slow. His patience wore thin, gnawed away by the frustration of watching others enjoy their success while he remained trapped in the same cycle of struggle. One evening, his frustration reached a boiling point. "Why do I have to work like this?" he muttered angrily. "There must be a way to command the world, to make everything happen instantly." That night, he made a desperate plea. He went to the ancient shrine deep in the forest, a place where the village spirits were said to grant wishes to those bold enough to ask. He knelt before the altar, his voice full of longing and determination. "Spirits, I beg of you, give me the power to command my destiny. Let me be wealthy, let me succeed, and spare me from danger." A cold gust of wind swept through the trees, and suddenly, a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness. Its eyes glowed like embers, and its voice was deep and commanding. "You wish to command the world?" it asked. James, trembling but resolute, nodded. The spirit stepped forward. "Very well. I will grant you a power that can make you wealthy and, if used wisely, save you from a dangerous situation. But you may only use it 3 times in your life. Speak the words, 'I am a chosen object, who are you?' and the world will answer. Use the power wisely, for after 3 times, you are on your own." James's heart pounded with excitement. He didn't think about the limits or the warnings. 3 times was more than enough to change his life forever. He thanked the spirit, and the figure vanished as quickly as it had appeared. James's life changed almost immediately. The first time he used the power, his crops had yielded only a few small potatoes. Frustrated by the meager harvest, he stood over his field and, with a wave of his hand, spoke the words, "I am a chosen, potatoes, who are you?" The ground beneath his feet trembled, and in seconds, the potatoes multiplied and grew large. The field, once barren, was now filled with abundant crops. James grinned with triumph, his heart racing with the thrill of his newfound power. He brought his harvest to the market, selling it for a fortune. The villagers marveled at his sudden success, but James remained quiet about how it had come to pass. As he walked away with his basket full of money, a small voice in his mind whispered, "One you's gone. 2 remain." A few weeks later, James found himself in the marketplace with a handful of coins. He had made a significant profit from his harvest, but it wasn't enough for the extravagant lifestyle he had begun to desire. He stared at the few coins in his hand, annoyed at how little they could buy compared to the wealth he now craved. Without a second thought, he whispered the words once again, "I am a chosen, money, who are you?" The coins in his hand glimmered and began to multiply, spilling out until his pouch was overflowing with gold and silver. His heart raced as the thrill of instant wealth consumed him. This was what he had wanted, more money than he knew what to do with. But instead of using his newfound fortune wisely, James began to indulge his every desire. He bought lavish clothes, feasted in the finest restaurants, and spent extravagantly at every opportunity. Soon, his wealth attracted attention from all corners of the village. He became the man everyone wanted to know. With his newfound riches, he also started chasing after women, throwing grand parties, and squandering his money on fleeting pleasures. James became the talk of the village, but the whispers were no longer those of admiration. Many noticed how recklessly he spent his money, and others began to grow suspicious of how quickly he had come into such wealth. Some even distanced themselves from him, fearing that his success had come from something unnatural. But James didn't care. He was rich, and that was all that mattered. Still, in the back of his mind, the warning of the spirit lingered. 2 uses gone. 1 remains. Months later, while driving alone through the thick forest, James's car began to sputter. He glanced at the fuel gauge, his heart sinking as it dipped far below red. He had no money left, most of it had been spent on parties and lavish gifts. Panic gripped him as the car slowed to a crawl. "This can't be happening," he muttered to himself. "I still have 1 use of the power left, but should I waste it on this? Is this really the dangerous situation the spirit warned me about?" He hesitated, but fear got the better of him. He couldn't bear the thought of being stranded in the middle of the forest with no one to help. Desperation won out. James whispered the words once more, "I am a chosen few, who are you?" The fuel gauge began to rise, and his car sputtered back to life. Relief flooded through him as he drove on, but the thrill that had accompanied the other users of the power wasn't there this time. Instead, a heavy realization settled in his chest. The power was now gone. He had wasted his last use on something trivial, something that could have been avoided had he been more careful with his choices. Days later, while gathering firewood in the forest, James heard a low growl. His blood turned cold as he turned to see a massive lion, its golden eyes fixed on him, its body poised to pounce. For the first time in his life, James felt true fear. This was the dangerous situation the spirit had warned him about. His mind raced, searching for the familiar words that had saved him before. But they were useless now. The power was gone. The lion stepped closer, its muscles rippling beneath its fur, its eyes locked onto James. He was alone, there was no magic to save him this time. His heart pounded in his chest, and for a moment, he thought this was the end. But then, something inside him shifted. He realized that he had relied on shortcuts his entire life, never truly facing his challenges. He had always taken the easy way out, and now, when it mattered most, he had nothing to fall back on. No power. No commands. With a deep breath, James stood tall. He raised his arms and made himself appear larger, staring directly into the lion's eyes. He didn't back down, didn't flinch. Slowly, the lion hesitated. It growled again but did not move forward. There was no fear in James's eyes, only resolve. The beast seemed to recognize this change and, after a tense moment, backed away into the shadows. James exhaled shakily, his body trembling with relief. He had survived, not because of some magical power, but because of his own courage and strength. For the first time, he understood the spirit's warning. True wealth, true strength, didn't come from commands or shortcuts, they came from facing life's challenges head-on. From that day on, James lived differently. He worked hard, valued what he had, and never again sought to take the easy way out. He had learned the most important lesson of all: real success comes not from commanding the world but from facing it, one step at a time. Thank you for watching. Kindly tell us what you think about the lifestyle of James in the comments. Also support us by liking, sharing and subscribing to our YouTube channel, Chukwudi Alola Studio at Chukwudi Alola. Thank you once again. See you in our next video.